Safaricom is the biggest company in East and Central Africa. It was ranked number 25 in Africa's top 250 companies in 2023, a drop from the previous number 12 position, and 67th in the world by the Forbes Global 200 list of the world's best employers. But what you might know them the most for is a mobile phone-based money transfer service that has over 51 million active users across Kenya, Tanzania, the DRC, Mozambique, Lesotho, Ghana and Egypt, 30 million of which come from Kenya alone. That mobile money service is M-Pesa.
M-Pesa.
Kenya's M-Pesa.
Every day around the world, millions of people send and save money with M-Pesa. And it's a great idea that started here in Kenya.
However, the Safaricom story hasn't always been one of glory. At one point, their future was uncertain and it looked as if the company would go bankrupt and fade away. But today, Safaricom controls approximately 64.5% of the Kenyan market as of 2020, with a subscriber base estimated at approximately 35.6 million. And grosses over 200 billion Kenyan shillings in profit every year. So how did they do it? Who is the real creator of M-Pesa? And most importantly, how did a group of about 6 people sharing a small apartment in Nairobi build the most profitable company in Kenya? Did M-Insight subscribe for more? And this is the untold true story about Safaricom's rise to dominance. From 1948 to 1977, postal service in Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda was provided by the East African Posts and Telecommunications Corporation, which was established by the British to provide postal and telecommunication services in their East African territories. These services were primarily designed to serve the administrative and economic needs of the colonial powers. The dissolution of the first East African community since that era, probably because of the independence of those countries from colonial rule, forced Kenya to establish its own monopoly communications company, KPTC. The Kenya Post and Telecommunications Corporation was established in 1977 through the merger of the Kenya Post and Telecommunications Department, established in 1948, and the Telecommunications Division of the East African Posts and Telecommunications Corporation. However, because of new government economic policies in the mid-90s, which were supported by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, and the controversy over IMF policies along with reported cases of government corruption, KPTC's board of directors was terminated by the Kenyan government in February 1999, prior to an IMF visit to the country. The corporation was broken up into 3 entities: Telkom Kenya, providing telecommunication services; Postal Corporation of Kenya, to offer postal services; Communications Commission of Kenya, a separate national regulatory authority. And amidst all this chaos is where Safaricom comes in. See, in 1993, Safaricom was formed as a department of KPTC, with its main goal being to experiment with the first-generation cellular network, Extended Total Access Control System. Later in 1997, it became a fully owned subsidiary of Telkom Kenya. In May 2000, Vodafone Group plc of the United Kingdom acquired a 40% stake and management responsibility for the company. And in July that year, someone new was appointed as Safaricom CEO. Enter Michael Joseph. Now, Michael was a telecommunications engineer who had worked for various network providers all over the world. He was born in 1946 in South Africa and was involved in developing the network for different countries around the world, such as Argentina, Brazil, Peru, and Hungary. Michael was the chief technical officer for a company in Hungary and wanted to become its CEO. He loved it there so much that he didn't want to leave. However, the company refused to make him CEO, citing that he didn't have the personality nor the diplomatic experiences to become the CEO of a European company. Frustrated, Michael went on to look for something new to do. But as one door closed for Michael, yet another one opened in quite a peculiar way. Michael was sitting in a bus going to a Vodafone event somewhere, and the guy sitting next to him said that they had just signed a deal between Telecom Kenya and Vodafone for JV of a mobile phone company in Kenya. Michael said to him that he wouldn't mind going to Kenya. He says he mainly wanted to come to Kenya because of the Mara, but the next day he got a call to come in for an interview for the job. Later on, he was appointed as Safaricom's first CEO. However, the Vodafone investors didn't have much faith in Kenya, nor Michael, to make Safaricom a success, and they didn't think that he would do more than 300,000 customers in 5 years. And so they gave him very little starting capital and about 5 people from Vodafone to start with. Little did they know how big of a company Safaricom will turn out to be. When Michael and his team started working on Safaricom, they rented a small apartment in Nairobi which they used as offices. They were given $20 million as starting capital, which back then was not very much money for the kind of company they were supposed to build. The name Safaricom comes from the Kiswahili word safari, which means journey or trip, and the word telecom, which was the business they were involved with. At first, Michael was reluctant in keeping the name Safaricom, but his PR team convinced him to keep the name as it was a Kenyan name and people would relate more to it. And this will be the foundation for the early and future branding of Safaricom. Michael wanted Safaricom to be a Kenyan company, even though a British company owned 40% of it. Right from the start, he wanted his target market to be, quote, the man and woman who came to work in a matatu. Even the early colors of the Safaricom brand were the colors of the Kenyan flag. Safaricom's slogan at the time was, the better option. Michael said this was key as it meant that there would always be aspiration for Safaricom to improve. Unlike today where you can simply make a Google search or write a ChatGPT prompt to find any information you need. Back then in the early 2000s, Google wasn't really a thing. This meant that the Safaricom team had to make guesses on crucial information, such as who their target market will be, not to mention that a rival company called Vivendi had already started before them and had a bigger budget than Safaricom. For the older people watching this video, you might know them. Comment down below if you actually remember Vivendi or any of the early competitors of Safaricom. Anyway, none of these setbacks were about to stop Michael, as he was very ambitious and was determined to beat their rival Vivendi. In those first 6 months, the Safaricom team made very important decisions that will shape the future of the company and make it the global success it is today. For one, they invested very heavily in building the network across the country. This wasn't very difficult for Michael, as he had already built the network in Argentina, which is 4 times the size of Kenya. Safaricom also made it very easy for Kenyans to access SIM cards and use them. They also had cheaper and more accessible scratch cards that were weirdly designed. Another big decision they made was to have free customer care services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Their rival Vivendi only did 5 days a week, business hours. However, this decision will turn out to have some dramatic consequences. See, people will make a habit of always calling at the oddest of hours and asking the most random questions. This will turn out to be a typical Kenyan behavior, as even now, some people still call Safaricom customer care services and police lines to see if they are working and to say hi to the personnel on the other side. Later on, Safaricom will be the first company in the African market to introduce per second billing. Now during those days, telecommunication companies usually charged their customers per minute. It was very profitable for the companies, as the time a user spent on a call was always rounded off to the minute. To put this into perspective, if you made a call and was on the phone for about 30 seconds, you will be charged as if you had spoken for 1 minute. If you spend 90 seconds on the phone, you will be charged as if you had spoken for 2 minutes. This made the telecommunication companies a lot of extra income at the expense of the customer. However, Michael decided to switch to per second billing instead. He felt that this would be more efficient for Kenyans and it would make them prefer Safaricom over the other networks. It was a gamble, and the Vodafone investors were horrified by the idea. No one else had done it in Africa and they weren't really sure whether it would work, but to Michael's credit, it did. These decisions will pay off massively, as in 2002, Safaricom reached their 1 million customer base mark. And from there, their growth skyrocketed. In fact, when they launched their network on Saturday the 23rd of October, their customer base was so huge that on that Monday, their network completely collapsed. However, the Safaricom story would be incomplete if I didn't mention a funny incident that happened in their early years that would be their first major crisis. In April of 2002, Safaricom got some funds from the Belgium Export Credit Bank, and they could now buy a switch and have enormous amounts of capacity. So Michael decided to secretly reward their customers for being patient through the earlier congestion and being loyal to Safaricom. The plan was to put 200 shillings worth of airtime to everyone's phone number. He started the process after midnight, and in the morning, he will go to the newspaper and surprise every Safaricom user and say, "Thank you for using Safaricom. Here's 200 shillings. However, the plan completely backfired. The person who was uploading the credit to people's phone numbers at the time was doing it from Dubai. Back then, there wasn't any fiber optics in Kenya, and so they were doing it using satellite. Unfortunately, the network will crash every now and then while he was uploading the airtime, and instead of starting from where he had stopped, he will start over again. This happened about 4 times, and it meant that customers will receive double, triple, and even quadruple of what Michael had initially planned to gift them. Now 400 or 800 shillings is not a lot of money when you have 1,000 to 10,000 customers, but Safaricom had upwards of an 800,000 customer user base, so the whole thing was going to be very costly for them. So when Michael realized what was happening, he tried to reverse the airtime, and when Kenyans realized that their magical airtime was disappearing, they tried to spend it as quickly as possible. The word spread across the country like wildfire, and soon the Safaricom network was jammed. This lasted for a whole 5 days. It was a disaster. Michael had to go to a TV station and apologize for the whole thing, as well as apologize to his teammates who had advised him against it. Despite this small setback, Safaricom went on to dominate the telecom industry. Remember, this was when mobile phones were becoming a thing, and everyone was trying to get one, and Safaricom was at the forefront of taking advantage of this new trend. They expanded their network outreach across the country, covered the entire Nairobi to Mombasa highway with the Safaricom network, launched the Simu ya Jamii, which made their services accessible to people who didn't even have mobile phones. And when Mobile Internet Edge was launched in July 2004, Safaricom was ready to take advantage of that. In fact, Safaricom was solely responsible for the first ever internet innovations in the country. They were the first to bring the 2G, 3G, and 4G cellular networks to Kenya. However, these major wins were nothing compared to what it will achieve in future years, as Safaricom was yet to discover its biggest product of all time.
Finally, let's talk about M-Pesa.
Kenya has become a world leader in the mobile banking revolution. It's all thanks to the system M-Pesa.
Mobile money transfer service M-Pesa has been feted among the top 10 most influential finance projects of the last 50 years.
There are many theories in regards to how M-Pesa really started. The Safaricom website says that it was started by a man named Nick Hughes, who also happens to be the founder of M-Kopa, an African asset financing platform. However, many people have come out on social media in the years after its success to claim that they are the ones who came up with the initial idea. but the most popular theory involves a student from Jomo Kenyatta University who was trying to come up with a more convenient way of sending money to his mother at home. His name was Ouka Anyona Nyagaka. Now in 2002, Ouka had issues sending money to his ailing mother in a remote village in the then Kisii district. The most popular way of sending money back then was by bus. However, one had to hang around the bus station for hours, and his mother had to walk to the bus station in their district, which wasn't usually a stone's throw away distance. Needless to say that sometimes the bus operators disappeared with the money and it never got to his mother. Desperate to overcome these challenges, Ouko came up with a way to send money to his mother without all the risks that using the buses brought. The initial idea was to send airtime to a shopkeeper in his mother's village, and in turn, the shopkeeper would give money to his mother. Ouko made a deal with the shopkeeper, and the shopkeeper agreed that he will charge Ouko a 10% administration fee. This style of sending money worked so well for Ouko, and he decided to turn it into a business. He set out to set up multiple agents across the country. However, he encountered numerous challenges along the way and wasn't really sure of what to make of his newfound invention. Long story short, Ouko decided to sell his idea. According to sources, Nyagaka pitched the idea to Michael Joseph, the then Safaricom CEO. They say he sold the software for about 1 million shillings, a fraction of what it is worth today. Nyagaka came out in the 2010s and presented a certificate of copyright as evidence, leaving Kenyans confused and not sure what to believe. However, Ouko Nyagaka's story is yet to be proven. So we'll just go with Safaricom's narrative about the founders of M-Pesa. In 2006, Nick Hughes came with an idea of using mobile phones for disbursement and repayment of microfinance loans. Nick worked for Vodafone, and they asked Safaricom whether they could test it in Kenya. Safaricom agreed, and that year, they did a test in Thika. The trial was very successful. However, the team in charge of the test found out that people were mainly using the service to send money up country or to their loved ones at home. So they went to Michael Joseph and told him that there could be something more with the service. Michael then started developing plans to make this service suitable for people to send money home. However, it required a tremendous amount of investment and was also very risky as no one knew whether it would work. Safaricom knew that M-Pesa would only work if the people who were receiving money at home had somewhere to withdraw their money from, which meant that they had to establish a network of agents all over the country. Nevertheless, Michael decided to pursue this idea. He put up a team in charge of developing M-Pesa and its network. Safaricom got permission from the Central Bank of Kenya to do this, and M-Pesa was officially launched in March 2007. Michael had a feeling that M-Pesa would be a big impact, and so he asked the team how many customers they would have, and the team said 350,000 by the end of the year, to which Michael responded that they must have 1 million customers by the end of the year. The team said that it was impossible, and Michael said that if they didn't have 1 million customers by the end of the year, he would fire them. Of course, he was only joking, but that motivated the team, and by December that year, they had 1.2 million active users, and after that, M-Pesa became viral. In December 2011, M-Pesa reached 17 million subscribers in Kenya alone. Safaricom went on to expand the service across different countries all over the world, with some of the first ones being Tanzania, Afghanistan, South Africa, India, and countries in Eastern Europe. It was so successful that in December 2008, a group of banks reportedly lobbied the Kenyan finance minister to audit M-Pesa in an effort to at least slow the growth of the service. However, Michael went to the then minister, Michuki, and showed him the M-Pesa service. The minister liked it so much that he offered to show it to the president himself. The then president, Moi Kibaki, loved it, and therefore the ploy to take M-Pesa down failed. M-Pesa went on to take the country by storm. As at November 2014, M-Pesa transactions for the 11 months of 2014 were valued at 2.1 trillion, a 28% increase from 2013, and almost half the value of the country's GDP. Today, M-Pesa is still the leading mobile financial service in Africa. It has about 30 million customers, and that's just in Kenya alone. And this would never have been possible if not for whoever founded M-Pesa. We might never know the true origins of M-Pesa. Many have come out to claim that the initial original idea was theirs. Some have sided with Nyagaka, saying that he deserves more money for coming with such an innovative product, while others have sided with Safaricom, calling Ouko Nyagaka a fraud. Nyagaka himself has disappeared from the public eye, and no one knows where he is, so it's hard to prove his story. However, the debate about who the real founder of M-Pesa is remains rampant to this day. Tell me in the comments who you think it is. I don't know what to believe when it comes to the founder of M-Pesa, but whoever you are a genius. Hit that subscribe button and comment down below so we can know your real identity. However, this is not a happily ever after Disney movie. Safaricom's story is much darker than you think, because while Safaricom has established itself as a really successful company, it has definitely had its share of crises, some darker than most. Brace yourselves, as some of you might not be ready for this. There have been cases where scammers have used SIM cards from other networks to scam M-Pesa users and steal money from their accounts. Others use tricky methods to swap your Safaricom SIM cards and use your personal information to commit fraudulent behavior all over the internet, landing the original SIM card owner into deep trouble with the government. Many in the mobile telecommunications industry have accused Safaricom of being a monopoly and killing the competition so as to maintain their dominance in the market. Safaricom has also been accused of overusing customer bundles, or as Kenyans like to call it, kukula bundles. And because Kenyans own the internet, there have been numerous memes over the years to patronize Safaricom for that behavior. However, in their defense, Safaricom's internet is the most reliable and most efficient in the country. Everyone knows this. You can't have cheap and quality in the same plate now, can you? So for that reason alone, Kenyans often find themselves slithering back to using Safaricom for their internet needs. Despite all this, Safaricom has gone on to create more innovative ways of monetizing and increasing their user base. Even after Michael Joseph stepped down as CEO of Safaricom in November 2010, the company continued to innovate and introduce new services to meet the evolving needs of its customers. His successor, Robert William Collymore, or as is famously known as Bob Collymore, led Safaricom in revolutionizing the financial and business sector by driving rural development with innovative mobile solutions such as 4G internet, M-Shwari savings, Fuliza loans, M-Pesa paybill or till number, and bank to M-Pesa transactions. He also introduced art and music income streams with Safaricom Jazz and Skiza Tunes launch respectively. Sadly, after battling leukemia for about 3 years, Collymore died in the morning of July 1, 2019. Michael Joseph came back as acting CEO, while the Safaricom team deliberated over appointing a new CEO to lead the company into the future. During his first run as CEO, Michael is credited with steering the company from a subscriber base of less than 18,000 in 2000 to over 17 million subscribers at the time of his retirement in 2010. Eventually, Peter Ndegwa was appointed as CEO of the company in April 1, 2020, and his legacy is yet to be created. You might not have noticed all this. However, what you might remember Safaricom the most for is the numerous memorable adverts that have shaped many children's childhoods. For example, do you remember this one?
Nchi ya penzi, nchi ya uwezo, nchi ya baraka na heshima.
How about this one?
Hello? Hello? Ate nimeshinda! Nimeshinda!
Safaricom, the better option.
Here's one from their early days.
Yate pesa.
Iko hii tu.
Nzuri sana. Sawa.
Sabti, nimeanza.
Kama ni wewe, bana vita ndia hii.
All of us surely know this one.
Na furahia
In the adverts, their main target has always been the farmer in central Kenya, the pastoralist in northeastern Kenya, the Maasai in the savannah, the fisherman in western Kenya or coast, or the hustler in the streets of Nairobi. Perhaps this down-to-earth relatability is what has enabled many Kenyans to relate to them and feel like they are a part of them, or maybe it's just that their services are very efficient and the most reliable ones. Whatever you think about Safaricom, however you feel about them, it is undeniable that they have been able to shape the Kenyan spirit and penetrate either directly or indirectly into every Kenyan's life over the years. Whether they will be able to continue doing that and on a much larger scale is the real question here. However, it will be interesting to see what happens. This video is not in any way sponsored by Safaricom, although they should give me some free airtime or something because I am a genius and I deserve it. Anyway, the journey of Safaricom has been in no doubt one of many ups and downs, and a true story of from grass to grace. At one point, its future was uncertain and nobody thought it would be a success. However, it managed to overcome all that and become Kenya's leading telecommunications and microfinance company. M-Pesa has become the most trustworthy and most used financial service in Kenya and East Africa as a whole. However, in light of recent events, all that is about to change. A new crisis has emerged and is threatening to destroy Safaricom's reputation forever.
Side design watu wanaibiwa M-Pesa manze is very alarming.
Na sijui nini inafanyika na M-Pesa.
Please summon Safaricom and CA chief over M-Pesa outage. CA stands for Communications Authority. If you have noticed, for the past few days, or rather on Monday the 22nd of this month, there was an M-Pesa outage where you could not transfer funds, you could not pay by M-Pesa, you could not do anything on M-Pesa. And this is very interesting because this is the second time that it is happening this month.
The Safaricom executives have been rather quiet about this, and no one is certain about how they intend to address it. We don't know whether or not they will overcome this challenge. But one thing is for sure, this crisis is a dark cloud that is looming over the trust among Kenyans that Safaricom has worked so hard to build over the years. Thanks for watching till the end. You are a genius. Lead with insight, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out.